Vincent. Let's find our cultural oasis today. So, welcome to What Lights Us Up.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk about this.
I was so interested in the concept of what cultural oasis and cultural desert mean. I heard you talk about it at the conference we were both at, IFL, which was the Italian American Future Leaders Conference. It was my first year, but your third year. I absolutely love this conference, by the way. I thought it was incredible for all of us to get together with a shared passion for our Italian American roots and network and be inspired from each other. And you gave a presentation talking about moving from what you referred to as a cultural oasis in Ohio, a very vibrant Italian American community, moving to Charlotte, and you referred to it as a cultural desert. While I'm sure you love Charlotte, we love Charlotte. Charlotte's a very cool city. You referred to it as a cultural desert in terms of, not having a huge Italian American community. And I thought it was really interesting. I never actually heard that term, number one. Number two, I moved from Connecticut, which was a very big Italian American upbringing community, to LA, which is also a cultural desert, but I never actually gave this much thought of, oh my God, I live in a cultural desert. So what inspired you to notice that you lived in a cultural desert, but also to start to create a community around your Italian American roots in Charlotte? And what do you hope others feel inspired to do after hearing your story?
Well, first, let's give IFL its flowers because that was a huge catalyst, not only for me talking with you today, but kind of where the journey and the inspiration began. Um, the Italian American Future Leaders Conference has been an amazing opportunity to connect with like minded young Italian Americans from all over the country. After my very first one, I tell people that it made me feel less Italian actually than more Italian. Subsequent years, I feel as though I fit in even better. But the first year, seeing all the folks that know the language and the dialect and that travel back there as often and that are really impactful within their local communities. I was telling people that I feel more Polish than I do Italian. So it it was a big inspirational factor in what I did here in Charlotte, what I'm doing here in Charlotte. And my very first year, um, during a discussion with all the fellows, which are what the first year folks are called that attend the conference, in a discussion with Patrick O'Boyle and John Viola, the term Italian American desert was used. Now, I don't know who used that term, so I can't give full credit, but I'm going to take credit for running with it since, because that's where I was. Now, living in Charlotte, I was in an Italian American desert. That defines as not having the traditional community, not having the emphasis on the stores, the products, and the friendliness that kind of bands us all together as Italian Americans. And it was kind of a driving force to create something here. So I just want to give them their flowers first because their work over the last 4 years now has been tremendous, I think, as a whole for the Italian American community. And I know it's inspired many people, not just myself, but myself included, to find what lights them up. So the desire to found something here, to build a community here in Charlotte came more so at a time in my life where it was a necessity, almost out of desperation, than pure like creative positive need. Right, I was going through some difficult personal battles, and in order to get through those, I leaned extremely heavily on my heritage, my family, and those things that brought me joy and pleasure as a way to as a way to get past this difficult personal time that I was experiencing. So, to answer your question on what I hope folks are inspired to do because of this is just to go out and do it, and to use it. Having something, doing something for selfish reasons can have positive impact on a lot of people, and it won't feel as selfish anymore after you do it. So that's kind of my hope and inspiration for others, is that you can do something if you set your mind to it, and it doesn't have to be, Italian American related. If there's a passion in your life that you want to pursue and you have the means in which to do it, do it.
Yes, do it. And what first inspired you or drew you to apply to IFL? I mean, how did you hear about it? You were living in Charlotte at the time, right? So at that
Mhm.
point, you obviously you didn't have, you had some family there, but you moved away from your family and this Italian American residence, or your upbringing residence, really, where you lived. So how did you hear about it? What was that experience like?
So the first year that I applied to go to IFL, I heard about it like out of the blue on Instagram. Like it came up on my feed, like not that I was searching for it, not that I was looking for it. It came up on my feed and it was this video that John posted that it was kind of like a call to action. It was, "Hey you, are you an Italian American between, this age group? Would you like to, come down to Sunrise, Florida for a weekend and meet all kinds of Italian Americans just like you?" And I think at first I kind of applied to it as a joke more than not a joke as in funny, but like a joke as in like, "Oh, I'll do this," and then like I forgot about it. And then uh they tried to release the acceptance letters and all that information close to Thanksgiving. And I was preparing Thanksgiving. I do most of the cooking for family functions and such. I mean, everyone in my family's a great cook, but it's where I derive my pleasure for the holiday is by cooking and feeding everybody. So I was cooking Thanksgiving and doing some prep, and I remember getting the email, and it's like, "Hey, you're accepted to go to IFL," and I went, "Wait, what is this? What did I get accepted for? Where am I going?" Um, and then, it all came back to me, and it was kind of just a fluke, and then it turned into something, I mean, spectacular, and I've been going back every year since. So
Yeah, it was spectacular. I mean, I had never heard of it. I'm outside of the age group when they started it, but I was invited by Patrick, and we had this little new group, together of us that were, visionaries. And so but it was cool to be a part of. Everyone was there connect, to connect over their shared passion for their Italian American roots, and it was just this incredible feeling. When I left, I was like, "I don't wanna leave. I want to
exactly.
continue this," right?
Exactly. Yep. Those 2.5, 3 days go by in an instant, and you're just going, "Wait a second! I made so many new friends, so many, there's so much that I still want to do. Why is it ending so quickly?" It's spectacular in that regard. And every year you leave going, "I can't wait for next year." And I think that what Pat did this year for the Visionaries group, as he calls it, or as he's coined it, was really great because it's allowed us to connect with other folks that share the same passion but may not be in that same age range. And because you're not in the fellows to the alumni age range, I think it's become a pool of resources for a lot of us fellows and alumni to reach out to. I mean, I wouldn't be here today speaking with you if you weren't there as a visionary and heard me speak.
But same. I mean, it goes both ways. Like, we also love to connect. I mean, it's both ways. Like, we wouldn't have met any of you without being at the conference, and age is just a number, and it's like we all share the same passion. So, and we all want to create community and connection. So why not have this bigger community, right? You mentioned something about your cooking, right? You're
Mhm.
cooking for your family and how it connects you and creates an experience. it's funny because I have the same passion. And I moved to LA and I started hosting an annual dinner for my friends because I didn't have any family here. And I wanted to have this long day of, and I wanted to cook for everybody. And when everyone said, okay, can I bring something? No, absolutely not. I would have friends bring something and it would be like a takeout container from Whole Foods or something like that. What am I supposed to do with this? So I make everything. And my friends have never seen that. They've never experienced a 4-hour, 4-course meal with one person in the kitchen cooking the whole meal. And it's what inspired my cookbook, Cooking with Italian Roots,
Yeah,
which is what inspired my passion for my Italian roots. Because I grew up, right, like you said, in a cultural oasis. I took everything for granted. I didn't realize that all of that I wouldn't have my whole life, that my grandparents wouldn't be living my whole life, right? And so
yeah.
I moved to LA out of choice, and I created an amazing friend group, and I never really realized I didn't have my Italian roots. Now my cousins live here. My first cousins moved here, so now I have family. But before I didn't for a long time. And I've created, even though my friends aren't Italian, I've created every year, my friends who don't celebrate Easter come over and it's the biggest event. They're like, I cannot wait for the invite. They're like, who got invited this year? Who didn't get invited this year? Oh, that person showed up late. They cannot be invited next year. They do not know. You have to sit the entire meal. You cannot get up. I mean, they know the rules. So it's interesting because you touched on that too. And that's sort of what, I don't know if it led you to IFL or sort of started that spark for you too, as far as, because you were living in Charlotte and when you host these Thanksgiving dinners.
No, well, kind of, sort of. So it started back in college when I was attending Bowling Green State University. I would host in our dorms. I would use the kitchen, and I would make meatballs and pasta and all that. And my meatball recipe, my sauce recipe, and I would feed, all of the friends that I made on the floor, and whoever else could come. I think the one time I made like 100 and something meatballs, and I cooked all day. It was a Sunday, and I would cook all day, and they would all come and hang out. From that, when I moved off campus, I started to host Friendsgiving, and much like you, I wouldn't let anybody bring anything. Bring yourself. Bring, beer, bring wine. Don't bring, you can bring dessert. That's the only thing. I'm not I don't do well cooking desserts. I don't bake for smaller gatherings. I leave that to the old ladies. But I would host Friendsgiving, and we would have 15, 20 people come to our townhouse, and I would do it all. The turkey, the stuffing. I would throw in some Italian, whether I did, stuffed shells or pasta, and I would have like 10 dishes, and I did all of it. And my friend Devin would help be my sous chef. He'd help prep everything, and we just had those. So then when I moved to Charlotte, the crowd became smaller because it was just myself and my aunt and uncle, but they would let me do everything. And then I started to get the longing for Feast of the Seven Fish, like I would have every year when I would go home to Cleveland, or when I was living in Cleveland. My uncle, who's a spectacular chef, he's actually one of the head chefs in at Tri-C, the local community college, and their really good culinary program in Cleveland. He took on the tradition of Feast of the Seven Fish, and he had been knocking it out of the park, and he had been teaching us bits and pieces. So I had longed for it. In Charlotte, we weren't doing it. It's hard to find all of the stuff to do it, believe it or not. So the one year, my aunt and uncle said, okay, you take care of Christmas Eve and we'll take care of Christmas Day. You can do all the cooking at our house. They have a great kitchen, but you can make the menu. And I said, okay, cool. So I made the menu. I talked to my uncle for a while. I got the recipes of how I wanted to do everything, and then I did it. And we cooked. I cooked for. There were 4 of us on Christmas Eve. I cooked for like 15 people. We brought the leftovers in chafing dishes to the local police department and fed them, because I mean, we had more leftovers than we would have known what to do with. I could have eaten 7 fish leftovers until, the new year. So that kind of, the cooking has always been a driving force for it. And I think for all Italian Americans, it's probably where we derive a lot of our inspiration from, is the kitchen, and our grandmothers or our mothers, or even the grandfathers that did the cooking. There's memories that I have of my grandfather teaching all of the boys how to make sausage and going through the process, or how to make pizzelles. And my grandmother would make the dough the night before, let it sit in the fridge, and then my grandfather would sit down and press all the pizzelles. Those memories are an inspiration in and of themselves.
Yeah, they are, and it connects us to, I think, who we are and also who we're becoming, and it helps us with this sense of belonging and why we are the way we are and what makes us who we are. So, yeah, it's really interesting, our culture. And if we think back to how we grew up and how our family did things, we do carry it with us as we get older and we move to different places. And so back to IFL, you were at IFL and you decided to take the inspiration you're from IFL and you created a community or a club in Charlotte. So how did you tell us about, what you did and how you actually created something essentially from nothing, like where a community didn't exist?
Again, there's others to give flowers to, because nothing ever gets done, I think, just by one person. There's always some influence and some drive from some other people. And IFL did exactly what IFL is, I think, designed to do, which is connect me with other people. I met a gentleman by the name of Mike Diamore. He was, at the time, the vice president of the OSDIA, Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America Lodge in Raleigh, North Carolina. Raleigh has like 400 plus members. They've been around for like 20 years. Mike is, I think, a year or two younger than I. We connected because at one point they said, "Hey, who's from North Carolina?" And I raised my hand, and I think Mike and I were the only two from North Carolina. So Mike pegged me right away as someone that, hey, you live in Charlotte, you have a passion for this, you can do this. And at the time, leaving the first IFL that I went, he's out of his mind. That's never gonna happen. I have a career that I travel 7 states. I manage, millions of dollars. At the time, personally, I had plenty of other stuff going on. I was like, where am I going to find the time to start and then run essentially a nonprofit organization, a nonprofit fraternal order, basically, and be successful? Because that's an undertaking. And then I traveled to Raleigh, and I was having a beer with Mike, and he said it one more time. He goes, "No, Vince, give it some more thought. I really think you're the person to do this." And he goes, "If you do, I have some other people in Charlotte that I can connect you with, and you can put a team together, and I really think that you can make this a success." I left that meeting, same thing. "I don't think so. I think you're nuts, but okay." And then I was probably 1 or 2 months later, I gave Mike a call and I said, "Okay, let's start the process. Let's tell me what I have to do. Let's take a serious look at this." And I think it was, again, it was selfish. I was looking to do this to regain an authentic version of myself that I was not presenting due to personal circumstances. And this was a chance for me to re-engage with the city that I chose to move to, and re-engage with the authentic version of myself. So I began the process of starting the club with OSDIA. That was another thing that IFL does so well is showcase in a lot of ways how many Italian American organizations that there are throughout the country. Growing up in Cleveland, I worked at an Italian import store, a deli. I did everything in that store. There's a local INA club there, but like I didn't realize how big it was outside of that bubble. Like yeah, you hear about all the stuff that takes place in New York City and Jersey and all that, but I guess you never realize how interconnected and how broad it really is, and how much history there is behind it. I mean, OSDIA was founded in 1905, I believe, by Dr. Vincenzo Solero and with some other gentlemen, and it's the oldest and largest Italian American organization, I mean, in the country, you could say in the world. I mean, we have lodges in Canada and we have some lodges that were founded back in Italy. So it was crazy to get immersed in that world and quickly find out that there were others like me, that started a club for maybe personal reasons, but those personal reasons became a community. That's kind of the origin story of the lodge in and of itself. A combination of my passions for food, the connections that I've made, and then the personal journey of rediscovering the authentic version of myself.
You touched on something I think is very common. When we grow up with certain conditions, we're told to be a certain way, do certain things because it's expected. I think the corporate world and working for other companies also forces us to hide certain parts of ourselves. And so I think we stifle that. But I think it's hard for people even to realize this is not my authentic self or really understand who their authentic self is. I think that's not easy to do. And I think it's incredible that you recognize that and you said, okay, my authentic self is linked to my Italian American heritage and to connection and community. And so for someone out there sort of seeking their belonging to a community, their town, their city, their work, themselves, to create their own cultural oasis, whatever that means for them, what would you tell someone about following what lights them up and about building that for themselves?
I would tell them that it's not going to be easy. It's work on top of what could already be work, and everything else that you have going on, but it's incredibly rewarding as you trust the process and go about it. You probably have great insight on that because I know that you had gone lost your corporate job and then kind of rediscovered, what do we do next? What do I do next? And there was a lot of that thinking in the process of creating the lodge here. It's okay, this is the position I'm in. What do I do next? And it may have not have been the right one, but at least you did it. I think that if there's a takeaway, it's to do it. It- Whether it's right or wrong, at least you can say that you did it, right? And who knows what might come of it, even if at the time you think that it's the wrong thing.
Right. And you don't, like you said, you discovered parts of yourself that maybe you felt were lost, that weren't, that you didn't even maybe realize you had, or that you were overcoming this personal challenge. But then you mentioned something else when you sort of met, you know, the other club and they were like, come with us and help us create another chapter. And you were like, no, no, same as the IFL application. Yeah, I'll do that. But I forgot. And sort of like your breadcrumbs leading you to something larger. So how did you actually, once you said, okay, I'll try this, let me try it. How did it go? Like having, finding people in the community, starting to organize events, just essentially like building this club. How did you actually go about doing it?
So I guess I didn't realize how much of a yearning there was in Charlotte for this. I go back to the reference of if you build it, they will come. It was it was very similar to that. I put the call out and people started to gain interest. People signed up to be put on the mailing list, and then it just kind of went from there. There is a tremendously talented Italian American tenor here in Charlotte who's actually originally from Chicago, um, by the name of Giovanni Grimaldo. He was actually doing small shows outside of one of the very few Italian stores here in Charlotte. And they were like the last Sunday or the second to last Sunday of every month. He would have these little shows and they would set out some tables and they'd sell you a bottle of wine and you'd sit and you'd listen and I connect with music just like food, especially Italian music. So going there and meeting him, and then I would talk with these folks that would be there, and they shared the same vision that I did. Like, oh, if we, it's great that we get together the second to last Sunday every month, but what if we had something else? And then, finally, I came back to them and said, okay, we're gonna do it. And they're like, are you, really? And I was like, yeah. I was, you know, and there were people from Connecticut, New York, and from Cleveland, and I got this tremendous support not only from the folks in Charlotte and from Raleigh and from the organization OSDIA as a whole, but also my family jumped on board too. They had helped me tremendously through my personal struggles, and I think that they saw this as the perfect outlet to really build my own support network for myself and have it all interconnected with my heritage. So I had this tremendous support, and I put the call out there on Facebook at these couple of authentic places here in Charlotte, and before I knew it, we were meeting at the local library, and I met this tremendous baker who's got her own catering business and food truck. And she made St. Joseph's pastries and beautiful cannolis and cookies and all kind of this beautiful spread. And she's become just a tremendous asset, not only to the club, but a tremendous friend to myself, which again was part of it, was building the support network, getting myself out there to meet more people, and we were meeting at the local library discussing, hey, what's this going to be? What do we want? What kind of events are we looking at? Outside of just meeting, to fulfill the checklist of OSDIA, like what events do we want to look at? What other things are going on in the community that we want to partner with? How are we going to expand the presence? And it went from 25 people to now we have almost we're gonna get over 100 this year. I just know it. We're gonna have over 100 members this year, and we're gonna participate in so much, but also host a lot of our own events that have been extremely popular. I mean, we had a bocce tournament. It was a spectacular event, and there's been plenty of other cultural events that we've been a part of. There's a huge, probably the southeast, one of the greatest events in the Southeast. It's called Festa Italiana Charlotte. It's not a festa in the way that you're probably thinking or the audience is probably imagining. It's more like a food and wine gala, basically. So you buy your ticket and it's all you can eat and drink, basically. And there's plenty of live entertainment. Geo sings, a bunch of other folks. It's all very authentic, very, very entertaining. And then all of the Italian stores or restaurants set up a table and give away food, and they all pretty much give away something different. So you can eat and drink for the whole afternoon, and we use it as a recruiting event. A lot of our members go. It's it's absolutely spectacular. That's been going on for, I think this is their 21st year. So being involved with that's been fantastic, and it's all for charity. That's the best part. They've donated, I think, like close to $500,000 to this one local charity, which helps folks with disabilities. It's a tremendous thing, and I got connected with gentleman who started it, Dr. Voci, because he up in Massachusetts was him and his family and his uncles and that were members of OSDIA way back when.
When is this, by the way? Because it sounds really fun. I want to come.
I think it's Sunday, May 17th.
Hmm. I got to put that on my list of things. And I think a lot of these events, festivals, bocce, Sunday dinner, I think a lot of these traditions that we grew up having that maybe we didn't do, but our grandparents did, right? We knew of them, right? The clubs and all of it. I think you hear about stories like you where it's being revived in areas, and then you hear about stories where that's not, it's sort of a dying, you know, breed. So how do you think, why do you think it's so important that we keep these traditions going? You know, the bocce and we had bocce at our conference by the Bocce
Yeah,
Brothers. I mean,
we did the Bocce
like
Bros.
there we right? They're making it cool and like doing an Instagram thing and making it like reviving it and then it's like, the occasional even gathering for a Sunday dinner. I mean, my question to you is like, how do you get just two people to come meet you at the library, taking
Yeah,
time out of their day just to come? Yeah, everybody wants connection, but it's like, how do you get the word out and how do you actually gather everybody?
I mean, social media has been a great tool with that. But I think it runs even deeper than that. I think it's the longing for the things that we used to do. I mean, we had pasta every Sunday. And if we're somewhere where we didn't have pasta, Monday became Sunday and my mother would make pasta. We sat down at the table as a family. Those types of things. Playing the card game Scopa or Bocce, it's kind of a companion to it all, cuz like I didn't really grow up playing it, either the card game or Bocce. So it's rediscovering those things, and it means different things to different people. So, you know, to share a meal as a big group, and pretty much all of our meetings are we do it as a potluck. Whatever you want to bring it. There's always more than enough food. Everyone brings a bottle of wine or whatnot, so there's always plenty to drink too. The lodge provides the basics, but you see, we have this big long section where everybody puts everything, and it fills up quick, from everything from meatballs and sauce and pasta to pizza and the desserts. And I think it's this desire to recapture what, even just a little bit of it, of what they had in their past. It's special. You could be doing it in the memory of somebody. You could be you could do it to meet new people. You could do it just to say that you're a part of it. I think every single meeting, it's for its own purpose to me. Personally, I take away something different every single time.
Yeah, it reminds us of maybe a simpler time or when a time when we had all of our loved ones around us. I remember my grandparents playing bocce in the backyard during my birthday parties, and I had huge birthday parties with my entire
Mhm.
family, gathering. And now it's like we're so divided, even
Yep.
in I don't know about your like, families are divided, people are fighting, we've got war, we can't even agree to the same, anything. And so it's really I think times and I'm sure maybe it's always been like that. It just maybe seems like maybe we're older and we see it more than when we were younger, and we wanna remember those times when we were young and everything was innocent and fun and, we didn't have all of the heavier times, and so
Yeah, and I think it stems from the idea that that it probably always existed, right? It was probably there's probably never been a time where things weren't difficult. It was just how that generation, our ancestors dealt with it. Getting together as one big group and enjoying a meal together was just their way of making a hard time easier. And I think that that's probably a driving force as to why people are trying to return to that. My aunt and uncle, we do like every other Sunday basically. We're getting together. It used to be like, hey, you guys can come to mine, and then in 2 weeks I'll come to yours, and vice versa. Now I just do a lot of it over there just because it's easier for me. But I also just like to show up unannounced and, uh, in true Italian fashion, they're, "Hey, let's eat." You know what I mean? So, I think that it's just a way that people have a desire to make a hard time easier, and getting together, having a community, doing those things like playing bocce, playing scopa, hearing about, the citizenship laws changing, having different presenters, participating in charitable giving, all that kinda stuff, I think is just an echo of what our ancestors were doing, and this is just the new iteration of it. Now it's not just your family or your extended family. Now it's the entire community coming together.
yeah, and, creating my cookbook, it led me to, losing my job, having this podcast, meeting people that inspired me to go to the town of my ancestry. I did travel to Italy to the town of my ancestry, where my last name is from. And this past year, I found my great great grandfather's birthplace and death place. We didn't actually have either. I didn't know that he was from my grandmother's side, and I didn't know he was from the same town as my grandfather's side. And my grandparents met in the US.
Mhm.
It was like this, it was like I was supposed to find it. It was just this interesting thing, and, I just felt so like, "Wow, I can't believe I just found that," and, "Wow," I'm literally walking that's this town, like, literally that 50% of my DNA is from. Like, it's just this wild feeling. And then it's like, I live somewhere like you that I didn't grow up, and I grew up in a very culturally, influenced Italian, a lot of Italian markets and delis. Now, since they're closed, we had feasts, and my grandmother and great grandmother, we would host Sunday, like every Sunday was a holiday. Like 30 of us. It would just seem like she made homemade gavadils like it was no big deal. I'd always be there. You'd smell the vinegar from the basement, like, wafting up, from the dark basement. I don't even know how she saw down there, and she did all the extra stuff, and so it just these memories and our upbringing, I think it helps us continue on our path without them, to sort of carry on that memory. I don't know what your experience has been in sort of, I know living in Charlotte and thinking about, starting this club and thinking about where you're from in Ohio and the traditions and how you continue those with your aunt and uncle there. And also with the club, I'm sure it helps influence some of the things that you organize with the club, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you touched on something really great. You going back and discovering your grandfather's hometown and birthplace and death place is something on my journey that I will check off later this year. I've been to Italy a couple of times. I lived in Milan for almost a year with school. And during that time, I traveled all over, and then I've been back on subsequent trips. But I really haven't gotten to delve into the ancestry side. I've done a lot of tracing myself. I still have my grandfather and my great uncle who were born there, who came to the United States. So they've been a great resource. I've kind of become the historian of the family in a lot of ways because I have a lot of interest in that. I have some family that lives in Latina outside of Rome, and I've stayed with them for a little bit. But this trip that I plan to take later this year is going to be to go to my grandparent or my grandfather and my great uncle's hometown, which is Monte Calvo, which is up in the hills or the mountains outside of Naples. And it's kind of funny because you said that like 50% of your DNA comes from right here. If you draw like a triangle from between the three cities where call it 80% of my family came from, they're an hour and a half from each other. I mean, it's like a big what are the odds that you guys all came here and then not only that and it all ended up in Cleveland and then created my parents and me and all that kind of stuff, and now I'm like gonna go on that journey and I'm gonna make the triangle between the three cities. It's to me it's a journey that I have to go on for my own self, but like one of such like full circle moments.
I think you'll love it. I think I wanna look up where that town is, probably near mine somewhere. Mine is in near Caserta.
I don't think it's that far actually. So the three is Monte Calvo, Campobasso, and then San Bartolomeo. So I turn 30 on October 25th. I told myself for my 30th birthday, and I've been saying it for like the last year, that I will be in Italy to celebrate my 30th birthday. So now it's just setting it all up logistically. Like I know that I'm gonna go and probably spend some time with my family that lives there because the last two times I've been to Italy, I haven't seen them, and I think they're a little mad at me. Which rightfully so. I'm in the wrong. I'm gonna throw my hand up. I'm in the wrong there. I should have picked at least a couple of days to have gone and seen them. It's not that difficult, but I didn't. So I'm gonna right that wrong, and then I'm gonna head further south because a lot of my travel has been in the central, in Tuscany, and then in the north when I was there for school. And I've been, to Amalfi and Naples and that part, but I really haven't gotten to like I haven't gotten to get into Calabria or Sicily, and those two places have been on my list for a long time. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a crazy amount of energy that's going to be expelled over, I think, maybe 3 weeks that I'm there. I haven't quite figured out the whole timeline yet, but uh, I do really want to go to at least Monte Calvo, if not all three of them, during my time there.
Yeah, definitely rent a car. It's what my cousin and I actually so I went to the town of my ancestry 3 years ago, and I felt this, like, I have to share this, what it's like to really live in a small Italian village with others. I was like, "People need to see this." And there was, like, this 300-person dinner, and everybody was, like, dancing and singing and cooking. And so I said to my cousin, "I really wanna host a retreat here." So my cousin and I did host someone last year for the first time. And it was really cool to bring someone who's not Italian, who came to our little town and came to our festival. But my cousin actually has helped other families, reached out to her in Campania and areas around us, sort of go to their towns that maybe don't speak any Italian and they want to find their ancestors. So we're trying to figure out how we help people. I'm really passionate about it because I'm fortunate enough to know I still have family that lives there that speak English because I don't I cannot speak much Italian. I'm learning, I'm trying to learn. And I feel so passionately about people seeing number one, the real Italy, beyond the tourist sites, really understanding the true culture and seeing where they're from. And if they are Italian or if they're not Italian, understanding like I said, the culture, what it's about, the food, the people, the love that goes into everything. So I think it's incredible and definitely go and travel there, and I can't wait to hear about it. So what has been your greatest joy on this journey, and how can we find more joy where we live?
Well, I think that one of the greatest joys that I've had on this journey is all the people that I've met thus far and will continue to meet, not only because of the club, not only because of IFL, but just as a whole. And going back to my authentic self, rediscovering my authentic self and presenting my authentic self has opened the doors a lot in a lot of different ways, not only within my career, but with the club and and personally, which has been an immense pleasure for myself. I can't, I get a little choked up thinking about it because if I think about where I was to where I am now, it's a night and day difference, and one that took a lot of work for myself. But if it wasn't for all the people around me and my family and the community that we've all built together, because it's not just me, it's all of we all here in Charlotte have build something together and we'll continue to build something and have something together. Um, that's been that's been probably my overwhelming singular greatest thing that this journey has taken me on. If I had to give a second one, it's getting to discover where I live even more. I moved to Charlotte and then unfortunately COVID happened shortly thereafter. So I really didn't get to discover my city until I was already living there for, 5, 6 years. Um, and, post COVID, I think there was a lens of kind of like shut in mentality that a lot of people went through, myself kind of included, to where I wasn't like out discovering like this little coffee shop here or this restaurant that I really love, or, finding out that this bowling alley, has bocce courts and then we got to use them and that kind of stuff. Like getting to rediscover and kind of fall in love with the city that I chose to move to that I didn't get to do because of COVID, was also, you know, one of the best things about this journey thus far.
That's cool, and that must have been a hard time to move somewhere new and not be able to explore and not be able to meet people, and that's really hard. So I'm sure that having this community now is, like, amazingly changed your life and just how you feel, and like you said, you've been able to find your authentic self, and I think more people should follow what lights them up or follow those little breadcrumbs that are sort of
Yeah.
invited on their path so they can find their authentic self. I think that's the point, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think don't do like I did and try to go against it for so long. There's a reason why it continue, like it's okay if you do it once, maybe twice, but don't do it 3 times because there's a reason why it keeps getting put in your path, and you trying to fight against that current is denying yourself what lights you up.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Yeah. We all need to find what lights us up. So tell us how we can find you, follow you, join the club.
Well, I encourage everyone if they to join OSDIA. You can find them on their website osdia.org. Find a local lodge, join up with them. They love having new people and especially younger people because they need to pass it on. And if you want to learn tradition and have something passed to you, it's a great way. Those of you that are in the age demographic, I encourage you to look out for IFL. If you want to follow me personally, it's V Fauceglia on Instagram, on Facebook. You can join the Charlotte Instagram and Facebook page if you're ever in the area and you want to come to something. That's Charlotte OSDIA or CLT OSDIA. Um, Heck, I got nothing else I could plug. So
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Loved this conversation. And I hope everybody feels inspired to build their own cultural oasis.
yes, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. I've never gotten to do a podcast before, so this has been a lot of fun. It's been a real treat.
Great. Thanks so much. Ciao.
Ciao.